council meeting of April 4th to order. Madam Auditor, if you'll note the presence of a quorum.
Certainly. Brad Beaver.
Here.
Paul Ayers.
Here.
Fred Glenn.
Present.
Steve Swartz.
Present.
Rick McKinney.
Present.
Amy Masalami.
Present.
Jeff Hurd.
Here.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. If you will all rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Amy Masalami.
You all take a moment and bow your heads and pray in your own way, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You've all had an opportunity to read the minutes of our regular session on March 7th. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those approved, motion carries. Okay, at this time, we're going to move to a different portion of the agenda. It's going to be for the public hearing, and it's for the proposed expansion of the Government and Judicial Center. This time I will open the public hearing. Mr. Howard?
Yes, just briefly, this is for ordinance 3-7-18B. It's the ordinance authorizing the issuance of bonds in an amount not to exceed $12 million pursuant to your instructions and previous motions. As I said at the other meeting, it has the prohibition. It also has a lot of boring, detailed information as to the form of the bond, how the bonds are to be sold, etc. Under the statute, you must have 2 meetings where there is a public hearing on this bond. If you recall, at your last meeting, we also had a financial report from H.J. Umbaugh. One of the questions that Councilman McKinney had was, why was the debt on the ramps project, the flyover, Lowe's Way, is had not on that list? And the reason is that the list of those debt was property tax, and the Lowe's Way bond was TIF with a code back, or a lit backup. I can't stop after all these years saying code. So with that, next item would be to hear any public comments, and if not, a motion would be in order.
This time I would open the second public hearing on ordinance 03-07-18B. This time I would entertain public comment on the ordinance. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on ordinance 03-07-18B, and I would entertain a motion to approve.
Moved. Second.
Discussion.
I was going to add the stipulation that no money can be used for any alternate involving the memorial.
I would amend my second to include that.
Yeah, yes, I'll amend my motion to include that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Moving further down your agenda, item 5 is the public hearing on ordinance 04-04-18A. This is an ordinance appropriating proceeds of the Hamilton County General Obligation Bond of 2018. Mr. Howard.
This ordinance is a little more in depth than most of your appropriation ordinances because of the things that have to do with bonding in the various statutes. But essentially, the effect of this ordinance is solely to appropriate the proceeds of the bonds, or the $12 million for the bond issue that you've just approved, and to use those for the project that has been described earlier, which is this project. that, I'll
Okay,
I would make a motion that we approve.
public hearing, we need separate.
Oh, I'm sorry, we gotta have the, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll just go ahead and read item 6. It's consideration of ordinance 04-04-18A. And that's appropriating $12 million of bond proceeds toward the government center expansion. Item 7 is to open the public hearing on ordinance 04-04-18A. And that is an ordinance to appropriate $10,680,000 from the general fund and $1,227,057 from the community courthouse fund toward the government center expansion. This time I would entertain a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. I opened the public hearing. I need to move on to the consideration of ordinance 04-04-18B, appropriating funds from the county general fund and cumulative courthouse fund. So we need to open the public hearing at this time. No further comments. I would entertain a motion for approval. I will close the public hearing. Thank you. For both.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 04-04-18-A and 04-04-18-B. That's what I'm proposing.
Is there a second?
So that we have the same amendment to it, that no funds towards the
Well, Rick's already made
Can we
that.
get a second first?
Second.
second.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Well, that's what I did on that first one, but
Okay.
I was want to do it on both of them.
That's fine. I will amend my motion to include no alternates to be funded out of these proceeds.
For the,
I know, and the thing about that is, Mike, what I would personally, I'm not speaking for the rest, what I would like to see is, once we see dirt flying and concrete pouring, and we figure out that we're down the road a little ways and we're not hit with some hideous cost overrun, then we'll start looking at, when it's appropriate, at alternatives. That's just my feeling on it. I don't know, Rick, you probably have something else you want to add to that?
That's,
the only one that I was really concerned with was that private issue.
But I think, I just, from a conservative standpoint, I don't want to start funding alternatives until we're firm on where our price is.
Brad,
Well-
for clarification, in your motion, does it only include one of those or all of those?
Well, I'm open to whatever you got to say,
we-
Mr. Howard.
The other alternates are all building more of this building to have it ready for the next stage. There is nothing in there, I mean, that has anything to do with, trust me, with the steel embargo and the other things that have run costs up. Having any money, I mean, we're not going to spend more money in the budget no
Right,
matter
yeah.
what. And having too much money for alternates is really gonna be a high-class problem.
Okay, good enough. Then we'll just include outside decorations in that.
Which
Did I second that?
You did,
Okay, then I'll,
or I did. No. I did, and I accept Brad's amendment.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I just want to say, as we're leaving this issue, that Mr. Howard's done this in such a way, with the help, or with the instructions from the Finance Committee, we will fund this particular project with no property tax increase. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Well,
Thank you.
Great job.
Wasn't just me, it was Reuter and you guys and the instructions and so forth, so
It is it's a big project.
we'll, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all for your patience on the agenda. We're gonna go down to the bottom of the page where it says number 5, public comments. Are there any public comments here this evening? Nancy Chance. Good evening.
Be here. I'm Nancy Chance. I wear 3 hats, Hamilton County Good Samaritan Network Incorporated, and founder of the COAD, which is the Community Operations in the Event of Active Disasters, and the ED Group for Hamilton County, which is the Executive Director Group that's just been formed in the last 2 years. We just like to extend a personal invitation to you, and I'm going to begin handing out an invitation if that's okay. I had talked to Steve, and he said to come here and actually present to you, and I'm going to be brief, but I wanted to explain that a lot of our new executive directors are new, and some of them haven't even been part of Hamilton County until just recently, becoming their, into their positions, and they want to know more about county government, and they want to be very communicative with you, and maybe have a breakfast, and that's what I'm inviting you to. And it'll be very brief, and we'll be doing a 30-minute or 30-second presentation with each agency, which will be very quick. And then we like to open it up for questions. We will have a packet that will be presented to you within the next week, so you can go through and look at the one-pagers. I think you'll be very impressed at what has happened in the last 10 years with the creative thinking of a lot of these not-for-profits and some of the wonderful outcomes. And I think it just goes hand in hand with what you do every day. And it just shows collaboration, and that's what we want to build, is collaboration between our county government and the not-for-profits. It has nothing to do with funding. We're just wanting to talk to you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you can come up and hand those out. That's great. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy Chance. Moving on to committee and officer reports. President, I do have a couple of items I'd like to talk about this evening. Unfortunately, Easter Sunday, we lost a board appointment, Bob Gertnick. He was on the PTA, the Peterborough Property Tax Board of Appeals, and he will be greatly missed. He'd been on that board for 20 plus years. You might know how many years he's been there, Rick, for sure, but 20 plus. That's a safe call. The other thing I'd like to announce, at 10:30 a.m. on April 10th, there will be a groundbreaking ceremony for the new jail complex. So, other than that, Mr. Vice President.
I got nothing.
Highway. Finance.
We didn't meet last month. Dawn, I seen you send an email out. We're trying to work something up in April. Is that correct? We'll check our emails, but we're going to have a finance committee meeting with Mike at Robbins at least for budget instructions.
Yeah.
It's a new year. It's April.
Yeah.
It's here already.
But there we go. Okay, that's it.
Doing it earlier and earlier every year, isn't she? First got here
Well,
summer.
that's
and now.
because we don't get our work done on time.
Oh, is that what it
That's
is?
why. So if we start earlier.
Thank you. Moving on to personnel. Did you have another item?
Nope.
Okay.
There was a meeting and they're addressed in the meeting later on.
Okay. We'll address that later on in the meeting. And under miscellaneous. Seeing none?
That's where I was gonna jump in.
Okay, jump in.
A couple items. Reviewing our calendar for the rest of the year, our meeting right now set for the next day, Thursday the 5th, and I wanted to see if there was a problem if we moved it to the following week, Wednesday, July 11th.
It's all right. We can bump. Excuse me, aviation meets the second Wednesday of the month.
So I'll make a motion for that.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And then, Steve, I had one other, I was gonna ask if we have a motion also to confirm, majority of the council have a meeting next week after the election,
Is that a motion?
as a motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Well, I guess I'm speechless. Well, I'm just curious
We
why.
had some emails going back and forth that, from my viewpoint,
Okay.
and I believe some others, that there's some political issues in play.
Oh.
And I think that less than a month, or approximately a month before the election, there's opportunity.
Okay. Mr. President, you know, as commissioners, are they still gonna have something?
Yes, the meeting's gonna go on. I do know that for a fact. Christine's here.
It would be a commissioners meeting, but it would not be a joint
I got
council
you.
commissioners meeting.
It's been advertised for a joint meeting.
Well, you can advertise the meetings on a Sunday or a holiday, and it doesn't mean that it's official or it occurs. I'm just saying, if the majority, if we have 4 people that say it's not a meeting, it's not a meeting. That's what I'm just saying.
Yeah. My feelings are, if you don't wanna go, don't go. I'm just going because it's an informational meeting. So,
But we all
you
know how
there's,
those can change, so.
it's been on the table here for 2 months. I guess I don't understand.
It was on the table for 2 months, but it took almost 2 months before we knew what the agenda was gonna be. And I
got the agenda
there's
4 weeks
nothing,
ago.
excuse me, there's nothing on this that cannot wait till after the election. There's not one thing on here that cannot wait till after the election. I see no reason to rush into this. And personally, you know, I asked for the agenda, didn't get it, so then we get one, then it changes. So, you know, I'm in favor of not having a meeting.
I've communicated that regardless of political concerns, I have a work conflict that won't allow me to be at the meeting. I do believe, though, that if there is no consent, there's no pertinent items that need to be discussed, I don't see the harm in waiting when the entire council can.
Still go to listen?
If they have the meeting, I'll still go. And if you want me to report on it, I will. If you don't, I won't. You can
Well,
get the information from
I didn't
the
know about
minutes.
it, but I changed the flight to fly out for work, so I'm free that day, so I'll be there. I'll be interested to see what they have to say.
So, Christine, is the meeting gonna go on? You guys gonna have the meeting? If so, you'll have a couple attend and the majority
Well, no,
won't.
the intent was we've had concerns expressed from council that there was lack of communication. That's why this meeting was scheduled. And we had planned to have the meeting. I believe it was called by the president. Mr. Jeter can give an opinion on a meeting called by the president, whether it can be overridden by council or not. That's your business, not mine. But there are important things. Our bid's gonna run out on the extra beds for the jail that I think we ought to sit down and look at the costs of operating the facilities and what we can do if those beds are built out. With the tariffs going on steel, I can almost guarantee you we've got a problem extending those bids. That was important on that agenda. So it's your choice whether you think it's political or not. We're doing business.
Mr. Jeters, can you clarify that for us, please?
Yeah, it's my opinion if you pass a vote here that it's not going to be a council meeting. Any counselors that attend will be attending as public.
Okay, and you're referring, how do you have that information?
I mean, just the authority of an ordinance. I mean, the statutes. I mean, if the council passes a motion by a majority that it's not going to be an official meeting, just like if you change the date.
So after it's been advertised?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, that's my opinion. So.
Okay.
Again, we're the ones that asked for a meeting, you know, and we asked for it like back in January, and it got drug out in February and then set for April 10th, but we didn't set it for April 10th. You set it for April 10th, and that's our concern, at least my concern. And again, these topics we talked about with the jail last time, I think it was February, that you addressed us about it, and we said it was over and done with, that we weren't interested in continuing to rehash and reopen it.
I guess I'm totally confused. We had a unanimous vote that we would have the meeting on April 10th. Now everybody's changed their mind.
No, there were emails sent that stated, I specifically sent an email that stated that I would not be able to attend due to a work conflict. And there was nothing that I could do in that regard. So that was not a unanimous. I communicated to the entire council, included the commissioners, as well as Dan Stephen and the auditor, that that was not possible. I did call and ask you if you had consensus from the council on whether or not, because I was concerned knowing that there were 5 people that stated that they could not attend for whatever reason, and that is not a majority. So in representing the council, it would be in the best interest to find a date that works for us as the body that you are representing, and not necessarily aligning with the schedule that works of others.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed
Aye.
as well. Okay. 7, unfinished business. Seeing none, moving on to number 8, table business.
I would like to make a motion to take the 4 tabled interlocals off table business.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries.
Let me go ahead, or you want to go ahead? My thought here, and I know Amy has spent a
Did
lot.
we get a motion?
Yeah.
What?
We need a motion to
I'll make a
discuss.
motion to approve a couple amendments.
Second.
Okay, second.
Thank you.
Here, I know Amy spent a lot of time on it, and I read some emails back and forth and whatnot, and my thought here is interlocal agreements, whereas the cities pay us money to help operate the 911. Very concerned that we go forward without any agreement. I know they're not perfect, and I know they don't address all issues. Don't follow the guidelines we tried to put out as us being the last person in line when the county signs an interlocal agreement. But again, we are the last body in line. Even with that being said, I feel like we should vote on and pass these interlocal agreements so that we do have a operate under, if Amy or any other person were to come forward with a better agreement, something that improves what we already have. I would be happy to vote for that and supersede. But I really feel like we need to be not accusing them of not paying, but this is a contract, and we need to be under contract so we continue on this, because I believe, my understanding is we are required by law to dispatch whether we get these monies or not. So I just feel like we should vote on them, approve them. If somebody comes up with a better proposal, I'm happy to look at it anytime in that contract. But we should vote on these interlocals and at least have ourselves tied into a system until we have a better system or a better agreement.
So I don't disagree with you. Sorry. I don't disagree with you at all. I think the only concern in passing these, they'd have to be amended anyways based on item 11D. It stated at our February meeting, at our March meeting, in the interlocal, it states in February 2018, an amended interlocal agreement will be prepared that will include payments by the small towns. That had not been determined, and that was a big issue that I had signing something that was in turn going to come back. So I believe that we should strike 11D. I'm happy to sign them. I would like to strike 11D and make the term run through 2018. We can readdress, since the small towns are not, costs are not effective until January 1 of 19. We can have further discussion for a bigger fix. And then I do think it would be effective to have a member of council on the 911 committee, or board rather, in order to be a part of those discussions.
Those were the amendments I referenced in my motion.
I was just going to say, in the last meeting, I agreed with Brad on this, and I just echo his sentiments on this one, too. It might not be the most perfect one that anybody would like to have, but I agree, we need to have something agreed upon and signed.
And I don't disagree. All I'm asking is that we just address maybe a few pieces that either now are no longer in standing because time has passed, and those could be sent back and reviewed. I can't imagine that anybody's going to have an issue with removing or shortening the term so that we can come up with have a bigger dialogue.
Brad, I'm not concerned about anybody not paying, because again, it's in their best interest. And not only do they want to pay for the services that are rendered, but the commissioners have plenty of leverage with all of the joint projects and, you know, mutual projects we have going on that could be stopped dead in their tracks. And, you know, the contract is just
No, I
being
don't,
legal.
I'm not disagreeing with you, and we're all. Sign the interlocals. Rick Min here, you were here, and Steve was here from back when we didn't have consolidated 911. All the effort it took to get us to this point. You know, when other towns were doing their own dispatching, it took a lot of effort to get to this point. And if there are still problems in the language, that's okay. But let's don't drop the ball here. Mr. Jeter, do you think it's possible, is it legal to strike items from a interlocal signed by another entity?
No, it's going to have to go back through.
But it would have to go
Mr.
back.
Jeters,
through
let me
anyway.
ask you a question. So if we pass tonight's 4 interlocal agreements, cannot any of those entities come back, including county, and make amendments that can all be sent to the other interlocals? So we could pass it, and if the northern entities find money from wherever, we can amend this after it's been passed. Is that not correct?
When does it currently stretch out to right now? What's the date on it? So, I mean, but there's no incentive, and I'm not going for or against that, but from what you just said, she just said, shorten it to 2019. If you go to 2023, I don't think it takes a legal scholar to sit there and say that, you know, they don't have to do anything until the agreement's up again in 2023 if you do propose an amendment. I mean, I don't have to have a Yale degree to tell you that. That's just my thought. So what do you, Brad, I mean, what is your concern here?
Here's the thing, you know, I don't.
They're going to have to be amended anyways.
There's an agreement in front, and we already passed the date that they were supposed to be in it, so that's already passed. But what I'm saying to you, and I don't want to go into it in an open meeting, but I don't want you to overlook the doomsday scenario. And I'll just say the doomsday scenario is it falls back on us to raise income tax to pay for something that.
I don't believe it's illegitimate though,
Well,
Brad. That's a
just don't
boogeyman that they
Okay,
want to throw at
and
us.
I'm just saying it's a doomsday situation, and we can avoid, just sign the interlocal. What's, you know,
I agree with Brad. I think if we sign it, then we can always come back and amend it at a later date.
At 2023.
Well, does this 11D that Councilor Masalamani refers to, does that make, that part of it is moot, makes the whole, does that alter what if we sign this, we're signing something that the time has passed on, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So how can we agree, I'm just asking, not looking for problems, how can we agree to something in the past?
That's my question.
I mean, it would, the way the agreement's written is it would essentially serve as almost a back date. I mean, you'd be backdating it to be effective as of January 1st. Which is the way the municipalities have been operating since it expired. I mean, everybody's been doing kind of what they've been doing so far. So if you pass it now, it'll be effective now, but it essentially would be backdated to January 1st.
But that still doesn't come up with the solution for the.
No, I mean, no. I mean, I think just my opinion for what it's worth. I mean, I do have some concerns with going too long without something in place, just because I'm worried that it's a question of cost in the air a little bit, who's paying what, and gives us less stand on as to what we should be getting paid. I mean, that's my concern, but it's just,
Well, what's the commissioner's feeling on this? I mean, are we asking for, is what's being said here unreasonable, like to shorten it, fix the 11D, those three things? Is that unreasonable? Would you be willing to, if in fact, let's say we just sign it as is?
It is not unusual, speaking as an attorney, not a commissioner, for contracts not to be strictly complied with. It's not unusual, it's simply a waiver. And the fact that those weren't renegotiated as of that date really is immaterial with respect to the base agreement. So it's up to you whether you want to run the risk, as Member Beaver indicated, that the county will have to pick up millions of dollars that our partners are now contributing for this service.
That's not my question. My question is, you as a commissioner, would you have a problem in incorporating the things that Councilor Masalamani and Councilor McKinney are suggesting? Would you have a problem to alter after we sign this? Say we sign as is. Would you have a problem with what they're asking?
What specifically are you referring to?
To take the term through December 31st of 2018, addressing that at budget hearings going forward. That would then allow us time to discuss the small towns, or to the north rather, in addition adding a member of council to the 911
It's not,
board.
you've got a signed contract by all parties except for your confirmation.
Correct,
What you
but it
have
does
is a
state that there is an
confirmation.
amended agreement, that it states that there would be an amended agreement. So there'd be an amended agreement regardless that we would have to sign. So I'm saying, what would be the harm in going back and asking?
The harm is going back to all the municipalities, as referred to Councilor Beaver and Mr. Hearn, and Councilor Hearn, and him saying, no, we're not interested, we're walking.
So you're saying that the funding
One at a time,
mechanism is not being messed with, though?
Whenever you
there's no
alter,
concern
if
with
you
that.
alter a term of a contract,
So you're concerned?
it is a counteroffer.
Okay.
I don't see how they don't cooperate with you. I mean, judging by the sign ordinance, you guys passed one with a $500 fine. Westfield turned around, did the same thing within a week.
Well,
because you asked
quite
them to.
simply, what
So
we
I
will
don't see
do.
I don't see where you couldn't do that. And I'm not arguing for or against the amendment. I'm saying that I don't see it as a big thing to go around to these municipalities, because it seems like, from what I'm reading, they all jump on board pretty quick.
But
You
who,
guys.
but whose job would that be? Take it around. See, that's what I'm saying to you. It's in front of us right now. Look, the only one that's at risk here is us. So let's put a gun to our head and said, okay, we're not gonna sign it, we'll just shoot ourselves. None of them are at risk by us not signing it.
Where did it start? Who started it, Christine?
Pardon me?
Who started this, the interlocal?
Who
I
started
don't
the
know.
negotiations?
I mean, who started passing around? Brad's saying, where do we start? Didn't it start with you, or?
It started over a year ago with language that pretty much mirrored what we had. The problem in question is the fact that the 4 major municipalities chose not to continue to carry the northern municipalities that weren't contributing. And based on
But
that,
the contracts
this
were up
was-
in 17. The interlocals that were in place were up the end of 17. So there was
My
discussion.
understanding is there was a continuity clause in there. I have not read it for a while. But regardless, the agreements were signed by the county. We were waiting on one, and that's why it got deferred a bit. Most of those were signed promptly at the first of the year.
One in November, one in December, one in January, and the last one was in February. But we didn't see them at all until February.
And my question was, it originated either, I'm gonna say, with the body of commissioners, and then the template was given to every other city's attorney to do it, in the same format, because they're mirror copies. But the issue for me is that it is not a stretch. I hear what Fred's saying, that you guys have leverage. You have so much leverage.
But to us, we have a signed deal. If you choose not to affirm it, our choice is to send it down to the Attorney General of Indiana to see if it's a fair contract or not, and they can confirm or deny. So you're, I mean, that's.
No, that's fine, and I
And-
respect
and-
that.
You
My
gotta be
question,
kidding.
And
but
we
my
will-
question
One
to
at a
you-
time, one at a time.
My
one at a time,
question
please.
to you is would you have a problem with a member of council, you as a commissioner, sitting on the 911 board?
At this point, it is an executive body.
Okay, so number two, you would have a problem with the term only going through 2018.
We try to do continuity so we can plan for the public safety of the county and make sure we have partners in place. This is big money, as you all know. So that is why we did the term for 5 years with the understanding we would renegotiate for 19 forward. What we're talking about right now is making sure we have funding for 18, because we will run out of money mid-June, even using the contributions that have already come in.
Would you say it's fair that this information should have been presented to us prior to the end of the year?
It's been in discussion and in our minutes, and it's a continuity.
I'm the interlocal themselves, one, whether it was drafted or not between each individual entity. Would you agree that it should have been provided to us prior to the end or the termination of the original agreement?
I don't believe that is truly your function to negotiate agreements.
I didn't say to negotiate, to review.
I don't know when. I would have to go through your minutes
But
to
you're
know
on,
whether
but
we
you are on
talked
that
about-
board, so you were aware that these were being drafted.
And I believe we discussed this before at joint meetings. I could be wrong, but I believe the discussion and the concept of the major municipalities not wanting to carry the north has been in play for quite a while. And I didn't know this question was coming up. Quite honestly, this is saving the county millions of dollars. So it's your choice whether you want to do this or not, or if you want to fund, the council wants to fund the northern tier. I'll be honest with you, we went to a meeting, and that is their impression, that the county council will
There was
pick
a
up
discussion.
that amount of money. Is that fair?
There was a discussion, that is correct.
But they are assuming that. And
I
so-
spoke with quite a few of them yesterday. They know that the issue is at hand, where it either was going to stay tabled or there could be further dialogue. A decision for their funding does not specifically have to be made until January 1. That's the start date. So at this point, my concern is that language that is in the interlocal, based on that, is going to have to be readdressed anyways. So what's the problem with making adjustments? We could make an adjustment to it, right? So you're saying if I said I wanted to support the North, you wouldn't feel comfortable taking that back to those entities to have them sign those amended? I'm asking just
I don't
another
have
question.
a commitment or appropriation from you, and it's in the future. And we're looking in the future to 19. Again, I don't want to get into a debate about this.
But
It's
it's
really your
in the
choice
interlocal.
whether you feel you want to sign this agreement and remove the risk, or you think that is so important looking a year ahead that you choose not to.
It was stated in the interlocal, so clearly somebody else thought it was also important to look a year
To
ahead.
all the other entities,
Correct.
knowing that they are not going to carry the entire load, it makes a huge difference to them. And that's why it was negotiated that way. They have for 5 years carried the northern tier. I mean, their proportionate share on their shoulders,
What's
which I think
the
would.
percentage of cost for the north?
Well,
I
you
mean,
know what,
it's-
we had that issue, but the numbers, I asked Amy just to hold off on that, because I don't think we should rush into that, making that contribution, whether or not it's the full amount or it's a tiered amount. But Christine, the issue
Well, I think
is
you
in-
need to know that number, and Mr. Snowden
know,
will share
but
that.
just that number's not gonna make us
408,000
decide
and some
tonight.
change.
But the issue also we had last month, 2016, we had a resolution that was distributed to you and other departments that the body here, financial body, needs to see these interlocals before anybody else signs them.
And I believe your resolution states that if we are committing money from the county, that was your requirement.
And-
These do not commit money from the county.
Not?
It does not.
Where's it come from?
It's coming from other entities into the county.
We have a participation in there as well. Right now, it's like 8%, but it's still coming from the county. But I mean, I'm astounded that you would want to say you would go to the Attorney General to see if the contract was valid when you want to collaborate more with the cities rather than your own council. That's just astounding.
There's nothing astounding about this. This is a question of risk to the taxpayers of Hamilton County, and we would do that to avoid that risk.
It's
I don't think
imagined risk.
No,
It is not
I
a
don't
real
think you
risk.
understand how many hours we negotiated to get these in place in the beginning and even now. So if
But
you
you couldn't
think
take
you're
time to send
better
it
at
to us
that,
first.
go ahead.
Should have
How
sent
much
it
is
to us.
the differential?
About 10% of the,
Okay. And do we have better numbers now?
I do have better,
And what would that be?
I would have.
Okay. You do that.
Did you come up with those numbers earlier today? Because I did ask you for numbers. You came up with those today? Okay. So after I had asked for those, when you said that you would know in May? Okay.
When
Okay.
that you would ask for, or that you had asked for them, I started doing that. So doing the 60-40 split for calls for service between law enforcement and fire, it's going to depend on what our ask is for our budget for 2019. But using the middle ground here, it's going to be I believe it's going to be about $420,000.
You have that figure for the county's portion as well, the sheriff's office? No, last I saw it was 309, so I'm just curious to know. But that number wasn't provided by them. I was able to determine that elsewhere.
I would just point out for the record, since we've had this agreement in place with combined dispatch, the county has saved millions of dollars because of the cost spread.
There were also entities that didn't incur costs for quite some time as well, prior to the merger.
That was
if I'm not
Fisher's.
mistaken. I understand that. Yes, I understand that. If you wanted to have a dialogue over who was spending more and less, might as well just say it all.
County's share is that correct?
Mm-hmm. So these numbers, I'm just curious, based on the information that you had provided over the course of the last few months regarding numbers that you had projected based on per call in a document that was provided to me for each individual entity. These numbers have changed, so I'm just curious to know the formula or where you got your data in order to.
Sure, so this is based on 2017's calls for service.
Yep.
Which all of the other projections and
Mm-hmm.
actual calls for service numbers, and it is a 60-40 split. 60% of the funding is I'm on the executive board until May of the year, and so we have not finalized. So there's a spread here.
And I guess to clarify one other thing, the 911 Executive Board is truly a board of the municipalities and the county with the executives, including the sheriff, is really the only addition other than that group, and it would take action of the whole board to include council.
I'd just like to say that I think this is a pattern that's disappointing and frustrating to us on the council. I'd like to go back to the training center, the way you handled that, going to the cities, promising them things with our money. And when we had a meeting after the fact saying that, well, we don't think we should pay you 100%, how about we pay half and all these entities pay the other half, we were told you vote this up or you vote it down. Now, I don't want to go back to that, but it was frustrating and hurtful because you made us look like we cared less about public safety. And even took it to the point when you gave the county, not you personally, when the commissioners gave the state of the county, you put our pictures up there as if we were the enemy of the public. And so, to me, this is frustrating, and it is definitely a pattern, the way that you've handled things since I've been here. Thank you.
Well, I would disagree with your opinion. We can disagree with how things progress. We've had numerous meetings on the training center. I mean, what's passed is passed. You've decided you don't want to fund it. That's okay. We've let that
That's
lay.
not what we said. We did not say we weren't going to fund that. We said we were going to fund half. You didn't even know, wouldn't even tell us what it was going to cost. We didn't know if it was going to cost $40 million or $3 million. I am going to the past because, to me,
Paul, I
you went to the
respectfully-
public, through the newspapers, you went to the public with this, and to me, it's frustrating, disappointing, and hurtful.
Well, it sounds very personal, and I apologize if you've been personally hurt. I don't recall the facts in that manner, and it was all in public meeting with public notes, so.
Well,
we
I
have
will say you
disagreed.
did just in this instance basically state that this was a concern of public safety from your opinion. And if there's anybody on this council who has looked at this from a public safety perspective, it is me. So I am also offended by your statement that by me not signing or rubber stamping what you have decided without discussion is the way to go. So if we don't have oversight, because we are oversight, I don't want to hear in a commissioners meeting that we are just supposed to say yes or no.
And
That is
we've-
not the role.
And we've never asked you to. It is your choice whether you vote it up or down.
I'm just asking for the courtesy for you to have dialogue with us before you put something in front of us with signatures from everyone else when it is county's responsibility from a dollar perspective. I think that's fair. I would give you the same respect, and I think that you should give that
And
to
I
us.
believe we had discussions before, and we have different
We
recollections.
have not.
Well,
Okay.
and again,
And you didn't state that at the last meeting. There was never any discussion. I sent
was
emails.
not
You did
at-
not respond. No, I
I was
apologize.
not at your
You did not
last
return my
meeting.
call when I called you to discuss in March after the meeting. I have attempted to have dialogue with you, and you have not responded.
I've not had any messages from you, Amy.
Okay.
You know, I'm sorry, but I think at this point, I should be able to say a few words. And those
Go ahead.
words are, these agreements were negotiated, they're almost identical to the prior, with the exception of who participates and amendments. Those amendments are to the future. We are talking about 2018 funding, which you can either agree to or not agree to. That is your decision whether you confirm this contract. And to take things personally against me, I find it very offensive also. So we're trying to do the best thing for this county in the most fiscally responsible way. We mirrored a prior contract, and these things were in your packets before you tabled it. You had no discussion with me before it was tabled. So it's hard to read people's minds. I can do a lot of stuff, but I can't read minds. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. Any further discussion,
Yeah,
council?
Yeah.
One at a time, please.
All right, who's up?
Go ahead, Brad.
I think that the cities and towns probably have a legitimate point about funding the North. I think we can come to some equitable agreement, but I also believe once we start that discussion, it mushrooms into a bigger discussion, because once we start funding, we, the county, starts funding 911 dispatch for the northern part of the county, then it is completely legitimate for us to go in and start asking, how are you spending your public safety money? How come White River Township has to negotiate with a private ambulance firm because another entity won't do the ambulance runs? How come Cicero, Indiana has 2 fire departments? We get into a big mess of stuff, public safety problems up north, and I personally have tried to stay out of it because that's their business. You handle it. You've got your own tax money. If you think it's a good idea to have 2 fire departments in one town, go ahead and do that. But now, we're slowly stepping towards the part where we're funding you, or we're funding part of you. So at that point, it's legitimate to step in and start saying, how are you spending your money if I gotta supplement your 911 dispatch? I really don't wanna have that discussion, but if we gotta go there, we will eventually. But today, I'm asking you, other counselors, sign these interlocal agreements. Let's have something on the books and then work for something better. Don't trash, and I was here for all the stuff, the training center. I really believe they ought to show us these interlocals before they go to the other entities and end up back here. I don't know how you can assume there's no county money in it when we fund the sheriff's dispatching. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I would really like to see interlocals before they go to the other entities. But still, all that being said, I understand all the parameters. Please sign these interlocals. Let us not operate without something underneath it. I can only see bad things for us. I can only see bad things happening for the county, and us be put into a position that we don't want to be put in and don't have to be in. We have not had the sheriff or anybody that we're responsible come and say, these interlocals are bad for us. This is not good for our public safety. The public safety entity that we fund, the sheriff's department, has not come and complained to us about their 911 dispatching. So let us sign these interlocals, try to come up with something better. At least we have a process in place until we get to the place where we got something better. That's it.
Well, Brad, I want to clarify. Is your motion with the amendment that we're voting on?
Sign it just the way it is, right in
Sign
front of us right now.
Okay.
Mine is the motion with the amendments.
If you
Okay.
make an amendment, it has to go back around to all the others.
I understand. No, I understand that. I'm
There's
just trying to figure out
nobody
I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to vote on.
Nobody volunteering to do that. We can sign these tonight, and we've got an
Well,
operating
we got the
budget.
motion here, so let's see what we're gonna do.
I do have a quick question, and I honestly, I see passion on both sides of the issue. I honestly see merits on both sides of it too, but I just want to ask a question about incorporated versus non-incorporated. How did we handle the home place thing now before Carmel, as far as this 911 goes? Who wants to educate me on that? Because isn't the northern part, because it's unincorporated, is that more county responsibility, or,
They have incorporated areas in the northern part. Atlanta's still incorporated, aren't they? Entities as well.
Sheridan.
Okay.
Sheridan also. So it's not all unincorporated, but even a place like Arcadia is not capable of dispatching on their own.
Yeah.
So the sheriff covers all unincorporated areas, so he would have been dispatched to home place previous to them being annexed.
I'm gonna, you redo your motion or whatever. I'm gonna vote for just so you'll know, I'm gonna vote for, to vote for this the way it was presented tonight, just to get it done. Not with the amendments, just
That's
moving
the
forward.
motion.
I don't think it's totally the way I want it, but that's the way I'm gonna vote.
That's the motion
I'm just letting you know.
on the table, right?
Currently, after we're done doing our talk, I can withdraw and somebody else can start all over. But Steve, I thought, wanted to let everybody talk, so.
Yeah, who's next? Who wants to say something?
I think the only thing I appreciate the fact that you were willing to listen to my concerns. Thank you to Commissioner Altman for explaining that the concerns that I think would have been a part of the amended were not something that we would have success in. I do think the conversation needs to be bigger. The Band-Aid needs to be ripped off long-term. And so I would be fine signing them, but I do want to come up with a remedy for the North before 2019, as it states in the current interlocal we will be signing.
Rick, do you have something else?
Yes, I have absolutely no problem waiting, because I believe it's drawn a line in the sand that we're not going to tolerate being treated with disrespect. This is strike two as far as I'm concerned, and for them to have fear mongering and to make a boogeyman that something's not going to happen or we're going to pay more money, I think is absolutely ludicrous with all the projects we have and have the leverage of millions of dollars of cooperation. So I will not, be a obstacle or obstructionist, but I will not vote for it. So I have no problem not voting for something that is wrong from the beginning.
Jeff, do you have anything to add?
I'm with Brad.
Okay. This time, if there's no further discussion,
And I'm sorry, I'll withdraw my motion so you can go it over.
Rick has withdrawn his motion, and who seconded that? Brad, do you want to withdraw your second? And the motion was,
I'll withdraw that and make a motion we accept it as presented.
Second.
we have a motion, and who seconded, please?
I did.
I did.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'm abstaining.
Those opposed,
Abstaining.
one abstention. Motion carries. Thank you for all that discussion. On to new business, the approval of vendor claims.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next on your agenda is the vacancy backfill bookkeeping.
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item number C, the personnel caps, that has been scratched from your agenda. That has been a moving target. That will go to personnel, and it will be under review. At this time, I would open the public hearing concerning additional appropriations. County General Fund requesting $10,715,737. The amount available for additional appropriation is $20,747,261.
So moved.
Well, now wait a minute, are we going 1, 2, 3?
I thought we,
Look at item 1, I believe that has already been reviewed earlier in the agenda, so we will scratch that.
Okay.
We will move on to item 2, which is jail cell pod expansion with the additional $32,237.
Yes, this, I want to make a motion to accept this. This is a bookkeeping problem in the addition. It's not over and above what we approved. It's just how we got there.
I'm going to withdraw the motion I made previously on A to accept all of them, and I'll second Brad's for number 2, the jail expansion, jail cell expansion. Am I?
Okay, any further discussion on this issue? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Item 3 is the auditor. It's a 144 amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion?
Is that just for one or both? They go together, don't they?
Also creating that full-time, right, Rob? It's abolishing 2 part-time, the new full-time.
Yeah, actually, it's abolishing one full-time position, real property, abolishing the part-time Pat A GIS intern. And then I classified it then to the GIS specialist.
I did not.
I did.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Welcome. Moving on to item 4, that's community corrections. There's a 144 amendment.
I make the motion to actually combine 1 and 2.
I'll second.
This the one that I stood you up on, Ralph? I apologize.
Do we need Ralph to come up and explain, or has everybody
I
got
talked
it?
to Ralph and I'm satisfied, so.
Run it down for me, I'm comfortable
Me
with
too.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for coming, Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph. Item 5 is court administration. They're asking for an additional $3,500. This is sponsored by Amy.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 What are they gonna spend their $3,500 on, Amy?
It's basically just equipment.
Party?
Yep.
Okay.
Pizza party.
That's a lot
I
of
doubt
pizza
that, no. It is not a pizza party.
Grant money for interpreting equipment.
Yes.
Interpreting equipment. Would that be like Surrey?
In Espanol.
Item 6, it's ISS. It's a 144 amendment.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Item 7, it's a plan commission transfer for $600. There's some office equipment there
Microwave and a toaster?
Table.
and a stand-up computer desk.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Last page of your agenda. Looks like we need to scratch item B.
Yeah, that's because earlier.
We took care of it earlier in the agenda. So we'll move on to C. It's Parks and Recreation requesting $491,342. And the amount available for additional appropriations, $2,234,525. Council McKinney, you sponsored this.
Seconded, grant money.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we need to do these separately. The statewide 911 sinking fund is requesting $715,704, and the amount available for additional appropriation is the same amount, $715,704. Mr. Beaver?
Yeah, this is bookkeeping required by the state. The money's
Right, and the first item is a reduction for $2,500.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Moving on to number 2, the additional. That's the $715,704.
So moved.
Second.
That's a bookkeeping thing too, I mean, right?
It's all tied
the same.
together.
Okay,
All
okay.
bookkeeping.
All right.
Thank you. All those in favor? We have a motion second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to E, it's the Highway Lit requesting $685,000. Amount available for additional appropriation is $1,527,439.
So moved.
Second. And this is an example of those projects I talked about that we have leverage. Project that we're doing coordination with them.
$685,000.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item F. It's the non-reverting computer maintenance requesting $167,490. The amount available for that additional appropriation is $2,123,526.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
This is an example of how valuable Chris has been with his leadership in ISS. At least hundreds of thousands of dollars. So.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item G, we're going to scratch that as well. It was covered earlier in your agenda. So we will move on to H. That's a reimbursement fund requesting $236,009. The amount available for additional appropriations, $236,009. Council McKinney.
So moved.
Second, but I mean, is this how many are there? I mean,
I
as
think
far
six.
as 6 of them?
I think 6.
Any questions on those?
like a lot of federal aid reimbursement, right?
Like the reimbursements.
Always the best ones.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Paperwork here.
Who is Monica Greer, and what is she executive director of? Fill out your little papers. You need to tell us what department you are.
Please come to the podium.
Good evening. I'm Monica Greer, and I'm the new Executive Director of the Hamilton County Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So, we need to do this transfer for your salary.
Yes,
No?
the grants, the OPO and DUI grants, in the past, we would get administrative dollars, which we still get administrative dollars, but the state wants us to get reimbursed instead of getting the money up front. So I will need to reflect my time on my timesheet for the time that I spend on the grant. It's not additional dollars towards my salary, it's combined in with my other dollars. I would spend approximately 10 hours a week on the grant and then the other time with the council. So, Dawn, do you have any other comments on that? So it would just be, I need to appropriate, it's already appropriated, but put that money towards my timesheet. So I need to be able to claim it. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this issue? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We have one more for you. It's the task force grant transfer.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Thank you.
Could I say one more thing?
Sure.
I did want to thank you for your interest in what we are doing on the opioid crisis here in the county. I do want to invite all of you to our annual dinner. It's a luncheon for our annual meeting in April. I do have invitations for you if I could pass those out. And I do have a copy of our comprehensive plan. I just submitted that to the state this week, so it's not been approved at the state level, but it will give you information on what we've done this past year on the crisis. So if you have any questions, my information is included, and I would like to also include you in the discussions in the future on what we're doing. So I appreciate your concern on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I do. Cordial invitation.
Okay, moving on our agenda, it's item K. It's the interpreter fund, and they're requesting $13,442, and the amount available for the additional appropriations, the same, $13,442.
So moved.
Second.
Moving
I'm
and
just
seconded.
curious,
Discussion.
how does this work? A machine, I'm sorry, yeah, I don't want to, I'm just curious for my own personal, how these machines, they interpret language? Is that right, Ollie? And the 30-second explanation, just out of my ignorance, I'm asking.
Yes, we do. Good evening, Ollie.
Very quick, good evening. The very quick explanation is that on almost all of the state grants now, they're reimbursable grants. On the interpreter grant, we pay for the services out of the county general fund, and then once we've paid for it, we request reimbursement from the state. This 13,400, whatever, that's a reimbursement for interpreting service. That's interpreters in the courtroom doing interpreting. The earlier $3,500 for equipment, we now have a remote video interpreting capability to use in the courtroom. Our interpreters are still being trained on that, but very soon we will be able to do that. It's a tremendous savings to the county because in criminal matters we have to use a certified court interpreter, and sometimes, depending upon what the language is, a certified court interpreter might be in California. And were we not able to do the video capability, we would have to pay that interpreter to fly here from California, do the interpreting, and it'd be very expensive.
My question is even less enlightening. How does a machine interpret language?
The machine does not. What happens is the machine just gives an audio and a video capability to an interpreter.
Okay.
Who is remotely located.
Yep, gotcha.
She's in her bathrobe.
Yeah.
I will say, Ollie, occasionally I go to night court upstairs, and it's very impressive because it's a full house, and most of the families have to wait out in the hall and see that interpreter at work. Very impressive. Kudos to her. Thank you. Okay, the last item is L on your agenda. And I'm sorry? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item L, it's court reform grant reduction for $117.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This time I will close the public hearing and move on to announcements. Sheriff?
Nothing new to report this evening.
Thank you. Council Attorney, Mr. Jeters?
Nothing for the group.
Madam Auditor? Anyone else for the good of the order?
Amy, did you send out an email? Did you say that the personnel meetings dates have been changed?
No, I just communicated that there was a concern as far, they previously were Tuesdays up until this year. Is that what you're referring to? Or
Yes.
Okay, and so I basically communicated that Wednesdays will be virtually impossible for me. And so I had just was letting the council members know that there may be a need to do alternation, but then it was discussed at the auditor and with HR whether or not we could possibly go back to the original Tuesday schedule. So that was still
Okay, so it's
out for discussion.
not been decided yet?
It has not.
Okay, good enough. That's all I needed.
Council McKinney?
One item just before we leave. The Hamilton County Economic Development Corporation, as has been known for years, formerly the Alliance, pretty much defunct. Next week, we have a work session to determine the extent of the research/intelligence center is going to continue. Commissioners are holding the appropriation that we normally give, and decide next week, hopefully, how it proceeds and how it'll be funded, and I'll keep you up.
Thank you for that update.
Yeah, Rick, you were included in the email about a company that was interested or possibly locating at our airport.
Right.
In the future, if our economic development group person is not there, how would that be handled? Would we just miss out on that, or would that go to somebody else?
I think it depends. They may go to the city, so that would either be, Westfield being close.
It'd be Zionsville, right?
Well, right, but I mean, the Zionsville would hopefully send it on.
Right.
But yeah, for anything that's in the unincorporated, and we can talk about that next week, whether it would come to, our planning commission or go to the commissioners. Indy Partnership, might distribute it. That's a good question, Brad.
Well, just so everybody knows, I didn't see the email, there was a prospective company that was looking for a site to locate at an airport, a large building. I don't know whether it was, I don't think it had to do more with manufacturing than it did with airplane storage, but they wanted to be located at an airport, so it went through Tim Monger, and then Rick and I pointed him toward Brad Koza at the airport. But if we don't have an economic development person miss out on it. And that was the reason for my question.
Okay, I want to mention something really quick here. We, for the Highway 37 project, as most of you know, or at least on the council, that we did a PR firm, something I introduced in the meeting when we voted it through. Amy went and helped form a committee that we're working with. It was me, her, Commissioner Airbrandt, Shelley, is it Elrod, Shelley? Ashley Elrod, I'm sorry, and gentleman from RQAW. We had a very productive meeting, and basically decided which firms we were going to bring in, PR firms, to come in and interview to go forward with the project. And then on the second one, we had them all come in and we evaluated them, and we chose Imavex, and it was unanimous. There was no, everybody there thought that was the best firm to carry on for that PR project for Highway 37, and I think they're going to do great work up there. So we're very excited about it. So we work together very well, that committee. That's all I have.
That'll be funded with our $250,000.
Fishers has the other half.
Any other announcements for this evening? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.